Okay, it looks like we're ready.
Okay, welcome to this MAG Executive Council meeting. The date is February 25th. The time is 7 o'clock. We are holding this meeting via Zoom. We have a live stream link that the public can get on if they so desire. We'd like to excuse Mayor Kaufusi of Provo, was asked to be excused. We'd also like to welcome Mayor Anderson, who is replacing Mayor Reese from Cedar Hills. So welcome, Mayor Anderson. Is there anybody else on that we need to introduce? Any other new ones with the government changes? I don't think any council seats were changed. We've got Denise, are you Summit County? No, that's Mayor Anderson.
Utah County.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking, so, all right. Our first action is to approve the October 22nd agenda for the meeting of October 22nd. Has everyone had a chance to read through those? They were in your packet. Are there any changes? See none, I would accept a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Mayor Johnson. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that, Glenn Wright from Summit County.
We have a second from Councilman Wright. Any discussion on the motion? See none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Who opposed? Any?
No, I just got in late
Okay.
for a night.
Any abstained? Okay. Second item is public comment. Have we had anybody join on? She said there were none on a few minutes ago. Melanie?
There was no public comment.
Okay, we have no public comment.
However, Kendall, I did receive a message from Sean Sater saying that Mayor Frost asked to be excused. However, he may show up a little bit later, so.
Okay, that was Mayor who?
Mayor Frost,
Okay,
thank you.
From
Thank you.
American Fork.
yeah. All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 3, is to approve the MAG 2021 scheduled meeting calendar. That's behind the blue page. You see across the top the different committees and different groups and their proposed meeting schedule.
And just, we'll probably continue at least for the next several months electronically, virtually through Zoom. So I know that the legislature is doing some things with the Open and Public Meetings Act. That's why we're not having training tonight on that. We'll see how everything shakes up once the legislature's done. They may adjust some of the requirements with the Zoom meetings.
Okay, well, hopefully who knows, maybe by May even, our next executive meeting, but hopefully later by the end of the year, we'll be able to get back together and rub shoulders and enjoy meeting with each other. Okay, if there are no changes or no comments on the meeting schedule, we would accept a motion to approve the MAG 2021 scheduled meetings as presented.
So moved.
Hey, who made the motion?
Yeah,
I did, Kendall, Glenn Wright.
Okay, Councilman Wright made the motion. Who'd seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mayor Ames seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next item on the agenda is to election of MAG Executive Council officers for the next year. Andrew, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so typically it doesn't have to be this way, but typically what we do is we just have the treasurer move into the vice chair move into the chair position, and then we elect a new treasurer. It typically goes Utah County, Summit County, Utah County, Wasatch County, Utah County. So every other time there's a Utah County elected official involved in that, but doesn't necessarily have to be. It's just kind of has moved in that direction, but there's no reason why it has to be that way. I texted Mayor Mann, who is the vice chair, and haven't gotten any response back from him if he's going to be at the meeting tonight. But also with Council Member Wright from Summit County, we had Council Member Carson, I keep calling her Carson, who was our treasurer, but she was not running for re-election. And so when we made that move, it was the expectation that Council Member Wright from Summit County would move up to the vice chair position. He's currently the chair of our aging committee and sits on state aging commission as a MAG rep for that.
I assume you're okay with that, Councilman Wright?
I am.
And Andrew, did Mayor Mann express a agreement that he would be okay with that if the board chooses?
Yes, before when he was treasurer before and then vice chair, it was that expectation as we've discussed that. But it hasn't always happened that way. There's been mayors who have resigned or lost re-election, et cetera, in the process. And they didn't fall that way, but yeah, that was expected when he ran for treasurer. And then what we would do then is have him be chair, and then vice chair, Council Member Wright, and then we would need a treasurer from Utah County. And nobody's contacted me, and nobody's contacted Melanie on that for the treasurer position. And then a couple of years ago, we changed how the secretary position was with all the requirements of the open meetings law and posting on the websites and all that kind of stuff. And I checked with Auditor Dougal, and that position, the secretary position, could be a staff member. It just can't have the treasurer and the secretary be the same person. And so a couple of years ago, we changed that in our bylaws so that Melanie Hawes is the secretary, and she makes sure that the minutes are posted right and the everything's on the websites, et cetera.
Okay, you Utah County mayors and council members, anybody want to volunteer to run for that treasurer spot, or do you want to nominate somebody that's not here tonight?
I'll nominate somebody. How about if I nominate Mayor Anderson?
I knew you were going to do that, Bill. I knew it. I don't know if you want me in charge of the money. No, I don't know.
And just maybe just to let people know what we have, again, because we're virtual right now. So Steve Johnson, who is our accountant, he scans in all the information and then sends that to you by email. And then you can review that and approve it by email. If you have questions, contact him, et cetera, on that.
He's always been very open to meet when I've been treasurer, to if I have questions on any of the billing or anything. He's excellent to work with.
So the treasurer just looks over the statements that he sends and just kind of a second set of eyes. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, as elected official, having that over all of the expenditures, money in, money out, et cetera, checks that are written, the vouchers, all that kind of that review. And then also with me, the chair and the treasurer sign like my timesheet and any of my expenses, et cetera. So I don't have a staff member that signs my stuff. It's elected official, it'll be the chair and the treasurer.
And also the expectation that, of course, if we follow the pattern, you would move up to vice chair next year, and then the following year you would move into the chair position if the board so chooses to follow that pattern.
Is there any other person that has the burning desire to be the treasurer from Utah County?
It's really not too bad. Really, none of the three are. I mean, it's good to be involved.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to do it if I'm not stepping on anyone else's toes who wants to do it.
Is anybody okay? Appreciate that. Anybody that's on the meeting choose to throw their name forward? If not, we would accept the nomination of Mayor Anderson for that position. Seeing none, I would suggest if any question or any discussion on potential chair Mayor Mann. Or any discussion, anybody disgruntled with Councilman Wright. If not, we would be open to the motion to fill the positions as we've stated.
I'll make a motion. It's Mayor Ames.
Okay, Mayor.
Motion, Mayor McCormick.
Mayor Ames made the motion, Mayor McCormick. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, as we were talking before, if Mayor Mann is on, he could take over the reins.
And I don't think he is.
I don't see him on the list.
And so it would be Councilmember Wright then, if he's okay.
All
with
right.
the Vice Chair.
I've got my, I'm unmuted and I am capable of reading the rest of the agenda.
Great.
And I see the next part of the agenda is ratify appointments for the MAG advisory committees. Michelle Carroll will be presenting this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can everyone see the shared screen with the PowerPoint slide?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So every February, we come to the Executive Council to ratify the appointments for our MAG advisory committees. In your packet, there is a detailed roster for each of these committees that you see before you. We do have one update, which I'll get to in just a moment. But just for a brief overview and refresher, for all of MAG, we have the Executive Council, which is this body that's made up of all the mayors in our region, as well as 3 county officials from each of our 3 counties. We also have the steering committee that is comprised of the MAG officers, including the past chair, the chairs of all of these committees. And additionally, we must have at least 1 mayor and 1 county official from each of the 3 counties, unless that requirement is met by being a chair of another committee or the chair or vice chair of Executive Council. And then in the Aging and Family Services Department, we have the Aging Advisory Council, and they establish the policy and the direction of all the aging and family services that MAG delivers. We have the Title 20 Social Services Block Grant Committee. They review and award grants for social services through the Title 20 of the Federal Code. And also under Aging and Family Services, we have the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program Council, and they set the policy for the RSVP program. In the Community and Economic Development Department, the Summit and Wasatch CDBG Regional Review Committee, they set all of the policies and procedures and rate and rank the policies for the CDBG program in Summit and Wasatch County. The Utah County CDBG Area Review is the guiding body for the Utah County CDBG program. They set those policies, they score applications, and they also make the awards. And then we have the Revolving Loan Fund / the Mountain Land Economic Development District Board. This body sets the policies and procedures for our small business loan fund, as well as grants loans to small businesses in our region. We also have the Regional Planning Department that we have the MPO I'll start with the MPO Regional Planning Committee. They provide oversight to the activities of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which covers Utah County. And then working under the MPO Regional Planning Committee is the MPO Finance Committee, and they're a recommending body to the MPO Regional Planning Committee. So those are the committees we're asking for approval today. There is a change that's in your packet, and I'm going to have Jessica Delora, our Director of Community and Economic Development, address the change.
Thanks. I just wanted to point out on the Utah County CDBG Area Review Committee, there are 2 vacant positions listed there, and we have filled those. So the county commissioner position is now filled by Commissioner Tom Sakovich, and then the citizen position has been filled by Summer Valente. She is the director for social impact at UVU. So those are the 2 positions filled.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. And then other than that, all of the rosters that are in your packet are correct and current. We can answer any questions, or we have a suggested motion. Oh, Kendall, I think you're muted. Are you muted?
On the steering committee, my name is spelled, it's D-A-L-L instead of D-E-L-L. It's misspelled. It's right on the next page under the Advisory Aging Committee.
Okay, we apologize about that. Melanie, will you make a note of that and make sure we get that corrected?
Not a problem.
Oh, yes, of course. My apologies.
No, it's okay in the one place. It's just that happens all the time.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt the MAG Advisory Committee's membership as presented.
This is Mayor Larson. I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it's passed unanimously. Next item, as soon as I can find the agenda. Looks like we're going to talk about the process to avoid fraud, and Andrew's going to talk to us about that.
Yeah, Melanie, can you pull up that PowerPoint?
Yes, I am working on it, trying to get it to do. Just a sec.
Okay. And we talk about this every year. We didn't send out the full packet, but we have that available electronically. So we'll probably send that out to you. I think most of you have gotten it in the past. Of course, Mayor Anderson, who's just on, hasn't received that package before, but we'll email that out. We just want to mail it out because it's big, but anyway. You want to back up to the first page? Perfect. So with great power comes great responsibility, which is a quote in Spider-Man and also used by the US Supreme Court. And I think with public power comes public responsibility and public transparency as well. Next slide, please. There are tools that we have to increase the transparency. And I think with interlocal agencies such as Mountain Land Association of Governments, the Utah League of Cities and Towns, UTA, special service districts such as sewer boards, et cetera, that there needs to be some additional scrutiny over that, just because it's not like a municipality that will have a mayor and city council in and out of the offices all the time, but we have this bigger executive board. And so I think there needs to be additional scrutiny over these interlocal agencies. And in fact, a few years ago, the state had the interlocal agencies identify themselves and register, and there were a lot of them that the state didn't even know existed. Some small water companies, irrigation companies, and things like that, that they didn't even know were in existence. Some of the things that we do at Mountain Land, we of course have our internal audit, such as you have at your different community levels. We also have external audits for the different funding sources that we have, each of those funding sources will often have additional audits that occur, some on a random basis and some on a regular basis. Some programs like the HEAT program, they review all of the entity, the funding entity, the state audits all of those for compliance with our HEAT program. And then we have, through federal requirements of the Office of Management and Budget, Circular A87 identifies different reviews that need to take place and different audits that need to take place based off of the type of funding that we have. Some of this federal funding is more stringent on its review, and some is less specific. Next slide, please. Identifying fraud, which is the asset misappropriation, corruption, financial statement fraud are typically the ones that we see. 40% of the fraud in government is found by other employees and by tips from other employees. Either somebody saw something and said, hey, this isn't right, and so they've tipped that off. One of the biggest things is it's actually more fraud is found by accident than by audit. And so what will happen is you'll have an employee that's over funding and they go on vacation or they get sick and end up being away from work for a couple of weeks. That goes through extra cycles, if you will, of financial statements and funds coming in and funds going out, and some other employee is covering for that employee in the meantime while they're out, and that person who's covering for them was like, wait a second, we don't have this account, or we don't have this employee, or whatever. And so most of it's actually found just as somebody's covering for somebody else, and they find it by accident. Anti-fraud controls help, and we went over this in the fall with some of the new requirements of the state auditor's office in doing our risk analysis and putting in a hotline that employees can contact. So they're not like contacting me, but employees are contacting another employee to identify any fraud, that they can have an anonymous tip line, and also reviews on credit card purchases, et cetera. We were just talking with Commissioner Sakiewicz a couple days ago, and iTunes gift cards are a drug buying currency. And so you'll see, and I think there's a couple years ago, an employee up in northern Salt Lake County who had purchased like $20,000 worth of iTunes gift cards, and they found out that she had a drug habit and was using the iTunes gift cards to purchase drugs. And so I guess that's a, you know, it wasn't directly stealing cash, but purchasing gift cards. And so there's some discussion about being careful with gift cards. It's like basically having cash around. There was also another public works director, and he was when they would have pipes, et cetera, that they would take out, and then they would sell that for scrap. And he had a little safe in his office that he put that in, and then he'd use it for employee incentives and things like that. They don't think that he had any fraud involved in it, but it was just something that, you know, happened innocently years and years ago, where they had some scrap metal and he sold it, and somebody probably told him just to, you know, keep it in a drawer or something. And then over several years, it became a large sum of money, and they could account for it all. It just hadn't been accounted until somebody saw him go in and open up the lock and pull some cash out for a employee function or something. I don't know, lunch or something like that. So a lot of things, they start out innocent and then they go from there. The higher authority someone has, typically the higher the loss, because they are exposed to more funding, and it just the higher authority that somebody has, the higher the loss is on embezzlement or fraud. Next slide, please. Characteristics of fraud. Quicker the fraud is caught, the less loss there is, the longer it goes. At MAG, we've had a couple times where person has created a Mountain Land check with a Mountain Land account number, but of course it wasn't issued by us, and they cashed that at their bank twice, but our accountant checks the books every day, checks our bank balance every day, checks the checks, and was able to find that very quickly, same day that it happened, and notified the bank, and we were able to cut the losses, and actually didn't have any losses because we reported it very quickly, and the bank fraud department took that over. 95% of fraudsters are first-time fraudsters. There's been a few that have gone from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and committed fraud. Proactive monitoring is the most effective. And so instead of waiting for something to occur, but just, double checking on things, and checking this and checking that, and having many eyes looking at things is helpful. Behavioral traits. So some things that they've identified are traits, or I guess red flags to be careful with, is someone who may be going through a divorce or a bankruptcy of their domestic partner. That sometimes there's that desire for embezzlement at that point to cover either some of those financial losses associated with that. Also, drug usage is a big one. That's probably one of the bigger ones, is that somebody's using drugs. And then there's some things you can identify if somebody's, living way beyond what you would expect them to do financially. You'd say, something just doesn't seem right here. And I've talked before about the Dixon, Illinois case, and you can wiki Google it, Dixon, Illinois, and Rita Crundle. She was a clerk, started out in her early 20s and worked there for over 20 years. And she had embezzled $53 million from the city of Dixon, Illinois, which is a small city in upper central Illinois. And what she started to do was, her first years, it was just a few $1,000s, and then she got up to where it was several $1 million a year. And what happened was, when the economy would go down and sales tax and property tax receipts would go down, she had a separate set of books, and she would have it go down a little bit further than actuality, and she would skim that top off. And then when the economy returned back up, she didn't show the full recovery of those economic upturns, and again was skimming off the bottom side on the economic upturns. And banking that difference, and how she was doing that was, she had set up several accounts that were just kind of a generic term, like a sewer enterprise revolving loan account. So I use these words that you're like, what is that count? So it looked like it was legitimate, but it wasn't. And she had bought $1 million RV. She had bought a bunch of racehorses and was going around showing off the horses and things. And people thought that she had inherited money, but it was actually over $50 million that she had defrauded the local city on. And she even got an award, Employee of the Year award. And when they gave her the award, they said that she treats the city's money as if it was her own. And she actually really was. So she's in the state penitentiary in Pekin, Illinois right now, serving out I think a 20 or 30-year term. The other one that is also another classic is Bell, California. And that was in 2010. You can again look this up, the Bell, California scandal with the city manager, Robert Rizzo. Bell, California is a working class community in California. And they had collusion between the city manager, the assistant city manager, and the mayor and 4 of the 5 council members. And so the city manager was making well over $500,000 a year. I think it was, this was in 2010. And the council members and mayor who were just part-time were making over $100,000 a year, except for the one council member who wasn't in on it, and he was making $8,000 a year. So everybody else was in on this except for that one council member. And he was like, well, I guess I should have looked at things a little closer. Anyway, even this had been going on for several years, and the city manager had his own helicopter and would take the council members in his helicopter to his ranch in Central California, and they would have retreats there. And nobody questioned why the city manager could afford his own helicopter or a big ranch in Central California. In fact, even this should have been caught by the CalPERS, the California Public Employees Retirement System, because he was getting money put into his pension based off of a percentage of his salary. And so the state CalPERS retirement should have identified that and flagged it. And if he would have continued on, he would have gotten over $1 million a year in retirement benefits for the rest of his life. He got caught, was in prison, but he had sued and lost to get his retirement benefits reinstated at that $1 million a year. Next slide, please. We talked about skimming, forgery or alterations in checks, unauthorized vendor distributions. And so there's been some of those cases where somebody has a relative who has a company and the city contracts with that relative's company for something, but they're paying $300, $400 an hour for something, or just double billing for things. And so we just need to have that separation, that the treasurer of your organization isn't paying for a relative's vendor distributions. Unauthorized payroll distributions, again, making sure there's not phantom employees in any of those, that you can identify everybody that's on the payroll. Next slide, please. We identify who at MAG has credit cards issued to them. They have certain reasons why they have that. Of course, my credit card receipts are will be looked at by the chair and the treasurer. So I don't have a staff person. I mean, staff people see my card, but they're not the ones that are approving it. My card gets approved by the elected officials. And then other staff members that have that, we've got several people that look at those. Jerry Walker, who is our kind of does our disbursements, and Steve Johnson. The credit card bills don't come to any of these employees. They come to Jerry Walker, who does the accounting for that. So she gets those, she reviews them all. It's before we get them. So she gets them, she reviews them, gives them to us. We identify the funding source, what the charge was for, et cetera, and then pass that on to her and Steve Johnson. They both look at that. They don't have credit cards, but they're the ones that receive the statements, so they can look at those. Let's see, again, all my travel, visa, timesheet, et cetera, have to have 2 elected official signatures on it. All receipts are reconciled against the purpose, the funding source, making sure that those purchases are appropriate to that funding source. Next slide, please. Oh, and maybe if I could just make a statement on that. The auditor's office has suggested that instead of using credit cards, you use cash cards, I think is what they call it, where it's kind of like a prepaid card, and there's only certain places that you can use it. So you couldn't, like, if you try to use it at a casino, for instance, it wouldn't work. It would be rejected, etc. We haven't seen that to be much of an issue. I've talked with the auditor about it and what the concern is with a credit card versus another card. And again, we've got those, we process them through every month, and a different person than the person who has the credit card, a different person is the one who receives the bills for that, so they're able to check on that on a regular basis. Next slide, thanks. Processing of invoices require 3 signatures, must be within the scope, budget, and eligible use of the funds. We're continually working on moving this over to electronic format with DocuSign and scanning all the information in so that we've got a permanent record of everything that comes in. And again, the person who opens the mail is not the same person who receives the funds. Next slide, please. Our travel policy follows state and federal guidelines, depending upon where we go and what we do and the funding source, but typically we're following that state and federal guidelines associated with travel. We do our reimbursements based off the federal guidelines. We have pre and post review, and then all of my travel is approved prior to me taking it with the executive committee. If you want to go to the next slide. And this shows all of my travel since 2010, which conference it is. I have certifications that I have to keep up, so I go to different conferences to learn the new laws and regulations, as well as to keep my certifications. A couple years, 2018, didn't travel at all, and of course last year didn't travel at all. In fact, I only made, in the last year, I've only made 3 trips to Salt Lake just to go to some meetings up there. Everything else has been by Zoom. During the legislative session, I would be up there almost every day, and sometimes a couple times a day, and into the evening and early morning, etc. And I've only been up to the legislature twice this year, and I've only been to one other meeting since this time last year. And that was just in Salt Lake. So of all my mileage, I've only had 3. Next slide, please. And I don't see any travel this next year as well. If you have questions, let me know. You can also anytime feel free to contact Steve Johnson at our office, who is our accountant. You know, sometimes it's kind of awkward. If you ask me something or whatever, you can feel fine to go talk with any staff directly at MAG if you have any questions on anything. And I'll send out that. It's kind of a little dated and a little long, but it's a good document on fraud. And I guess if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions?
Hey, Andrew, we need to go for a helicopter ride.
Yeah, to go see the horses.
All right. Hearing no further questions, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the mid-year budget review from Michelle. And is that supposed to be fiscal year 2021, perhaps?
The way we do our accounting, we're reporting on fiscal year 2020 that ends June 30th of 2021.
Okay.
And then fiscal year 2021 will start July 1 of this year.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle.
No problem. All right, so these numbers that I'll be presenting come from Steve Johnson, our CFO, as Andrew mentioned. So we are 7 months into our fiscal year, and these numbers are as of January 31st. And so he provided us a progress of where we have spent in all of our programs. The ones that you see that are spent quite high, I did make notes here. It's because those programs come to an end in March, so we're on track. And then if you see some lower spent items, those are programs that either don't end until 2022 or we're just starting because they've started in February. So we're just getting going on those. Steve reports that we are on track for all of our programs. I did add an extra slide specifically addressing our CARES Act funding that we managed this year. For the Park City, Wasatch County, Summit County, and the Utah County CARES programs, those are 100% spent down and closed out, as well as the Small Cities CDBG program that covers Summit and Wasatch program. It's fully committed, and there's just a little bit that we have to draw down still, but that program is fully committed and about to close out. Utah County Community Development Block Grant, the COVID dollars, they were about 5% at this point, but I know that the committee is actively meeting and they have some projects on board and they have a plan to get those funds out, as well as Lehigh. They are working on identifying projects for their CDBG COVID funding. And lastly, we have the EDA CARES program. We're about 12% as of the end of January, and that program actually runs through June of 2022. We really got started on that program in September. Many of you have probably participated on our advisory committee with the consulting firm that is doing our COVID economic recovery and resiliency plan. They have also reached out to many of you for one-on-one interviews. And we anticipate in approximately 3 to 6 months, we will have that economic recovery and resiliency plan. And that it covers our whole region for the 3 counties, but we will be having it broke down by county. So it'll have county specific information on how COVID affected the counties and a plan for action to move forward in recovery and resiliency.
Michelle, a really quick question. Is there a deadline for spending those Utah County and Lehigh CDBG COVID funds?
Jessica, do you want to chime in on the CDBG deadlines?
Yep, for sure. So the first deadline we'll come up against is we have to submit a plan to HUD by the end of August of this year for the plan to spend those funds. But the funds don't actually have to be spent for 6 years. It's a much longer time frame.
Very good. Not like the rush we went through last year.
Yeah, so we had the CARES funding that we were managing a lot of those funds. And so we really put that effort to get the CARES funding out that had that tight deadline. And then now that that's been all wrapped up, we're refocusing on the CDBG COVID funding.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? I do have a couple more slides about some budget items moving forward before I move on. Can I answer any questions about where we are now? All right. So in May, when this body meets again, we'll be presenting our budget for our fiscal year 2021. But internally, we are starting to plan for that budget. And we look at the cost of living adjustment every year. And how MAG determines that and makes the recommendation to Executive Council is we look at 3 indexes. We look at the Social Security cost of living adjustment, the National Consumer Price Index, as well as now it's called the Mountain Plains Consumer Price Index. And just real quickly, I have a map. So this medium blue is the Mountain Plain region. Formerly, it also included the entire western region here, as well as New Mexico. So just for reference, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has changed the area. So now we're looking at the Mountain Plains CPI going forward 2020 and beyond. So if we look back last year in 2020, we took the average of those 3 indexes and we had budgeted for a 2.0 COLA. However, due to COVID, it was decided that that would not be implemented. So MAG staff did not receive a COLA last year. As we're planning for 2021, we are again looking at those 3 indexes, and the double asterisks mean those current numbers with the double asterisks are January 2021 numbers. As we get further along our budget process, they will reissue and update those numbers, and they'll publish those in March or April. So we'll update those with the March and April numbers. But right now, the average is 1.3 for a cost of living. We know the state of Utah is granting state staff 3.0 cost of living adjustment, and MAG is looking to budget approximately a 3.3 to account for no COLA last year, and then the approximately 1.3 average of the cost of living adjustments this year. And again, this is just for planning purposes, and we will bring this back to you in May. Can I answer any questions about the COLA at this time? Questions, concerns? All right. I'm going to skip that. And then the merit. Again, in MAG's policies and procedures, we have planned in a 2.0% merit on an annual basis. And we did budget for that, and we had that approved last year. But again, due to COVID, that was not implemented. So MAG staff did not receive the merit or the COLA last year. And so as we're planning for 2021, we would like to add in that 2% merit for 2021. What MAG did receive with the approval of his Executive Council in November, we did receive our 1% longevity bonus that comes in November. So it's kind of a holiday / longevity bonus, and it's based on how many months you've been at MAG. So some of our longtime employees, especially we have some Meals on Wheels drivers that have been on a long time, and so we all get a longevity bonus in November. So we did receive that. But these are what we're planning moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions or take any input that you may have.
Hearing none. I guess you can proceed, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, that's it?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Next item on our agenda is a legislative update from Andrew. Andrew, what is the legislature trying to do to us this year with a week to go?
Yeah, so the big one just came out last night around 6 o'clock, I believe is when it dropped. House Bill 433, which is amendments to infrastructure funding. It does a couple things. It's $2.3 billion in transportation, trails, roads, transit, also some recreational opportunities associated with that. Of that 2.3 billion, there is one-time cash out of the general fund of 800 million that they'll be using for that. Identifies some of the projects within the Mountain Land area, the Vineyard Connector, Geneva Road in front of the new Orm Temple is identified, as well as some improvements on 1600 North and Orm, widening of 1600 South, which I think is 2700 North in Spanish Fork, 1600 South in Springville, 2700 North in Spanish Fork, from Main Street in Spanish Fork out to SR 51, and then from SR 51 out to I-15. That improvement, including an interchange, was approved, I believe it was a month ago in Transportation Commission. So that's one that we've been working on for quite a while. We've got other projects throughout the state. Do you have a second page to that? I think there's the next one. Yep, perfect. So this identifies some of the other funding that's been authorized, and then goes on to identify the $1.4 billion bond that they're proposing, which will do some strategic double tracking of a front runner throughout that corridor from Ogden to Provo, as well as some BRT projects, et cetera. Next page, please. And then an environmental study at Point of the Mountain, and a consolidation of the Sharp-Tinnick line in Utah County. So there is cash, one-time cash this year in surplus funding because of how they budgeted last year. They cut funding last year, cut budgets last year, expecting a downturn in the economy, but actually the sales tax, et cetera, went up, income tax went up, and so they had surplus. They're counting that as one-time money for this year and still keeping the budgeted ongoing funding down low, so they're able to make a one-time cash infusement into transportation. These are the ones that are identified, but there's actually additional funding for projects statewide. And then with the $1.4 billion bond, they will be looking at projects that were approved through the Transportation Commission process to fund those statewide as well.
Andrew, could you show the first page again?
Yep. I'll have Melanie do that. And I think we emailed this out to the Utah County NPO earlier today. So all the mayors and commissioners in Utah County should have gotten that today. Right now, it's in the House. Of course, it just dropped last night. There's discussion in the House about it, and then it will go over to the Senate. We've got a week left in the legislature. So we're just hoping this goes through. It'll be good. They're looking at the bonding rate is 1.25%, and inflationary rates, we're looking at somewhere in the 6 to 7% inflationary rates on transportation construction versus the 1.25% bonding rate. Obviously, the bond won't be taken out all at once. It will be taken out over a several-year period and be programming until 2029. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
So Andrew, it is divided between one-time general funds and then taking out a bond. I did hear some legislators on the news today saying that they're a little queasy about taking out such a large bond. Any comments or thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously, anytime you borrow, there's that question about, long-term stability, et cetera. Again, when they're looking at this, they have a constitutional debt limit that they are looking at, which I believe is not over. I'm looking around for my other paper that I had notes on from earlier today. They have the constitutional debt limit of 50%, I believe. And even with this bond at this amount, they're paying off their existing bonds quicker than they had expected. And so even with taking this out over the next several years, 5 or 6 years, the debt will go down and the constitutional debt limit will go down as well. And so they're looking at what they feel they're comfortable with as ongoing funding within the sales tax and gasoline tax to fund the bond. And like I said, they borrowed up, but it will be cheaper than the inflationary costs associated with doing a pay-as-you-go. So it's just how you look at things. If you look at it and you say, you know, the 1.25% is cheaper than the 7% inflationary rate, you want to be prudent and make sure that you're not bumping up against any constitutional limits, which they're not. And in fact, they'll be reducing that because they've got more of the cash flow. That we're talking, you know, somewhere in the $750 million in cash flow that UDOT has every year through the tax streams that they have. So it's, you know, yeah, it's a lot of money, but they also have a lot of money that they use. And of course, infrastructure costs a lot.
So the interest rate is lower than it's ever been. It's dropped by 40% over the last 2 years. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to bond right now for infrastructure needs. And certainly the money needed for the double tracking of Front Runner makes a lot of sense, because Front Runner right now takes 1.5 lanes off the freeway. And if they were to double track and increase the timing of it to 15 minutes from 30 minutes, you'd take another 1.5 lanes of traffic off. So I really feel like these are necessary items that are wise to do at this time. And I hope the legislature feels the same way.
And we just received from Lewis, Young, Robertson, Birmingham, white paper, excuse me, on bonding, and looking at these different scenarios of the cost of bonding versus the cost of pay as you go. And we just got that this afternoon. So we'll share that with all of you to show that financial outlook of the bonding versus actual pay as you go on financing.
So Julie Fulmer had a comment on the Vineyard Connection language. Did you see that?
Yes, and I think that that's sometimes they have to refer to things somewhat ambiguous if it's, so the right of way UDOT owns in that area, but it's not an existing road. And so they're calling it a connector road between this point and this point, even though they know where it is, but it's you couldn't go out there and see a street sign. And in fact, several years ago when they were doing earmarks at the federal level, they identified a couple projects and had typos in the federal registry when they approved those. And so what the cities had to do that got those federal earmarks was they actually changed the name of the road to the mistyped road because it would take an act of Congress to identify a different road. They would have to go back and change the federal law. So they actually just changed the name of the road during the time that they were under construction and then changed it back when they were done. So it's probably a thing where they just, they're not
so
sure
her
exactly what that name is.
The ambiguity is okay from your point of view.
Yeah, UDOT already owns the right of way. They've owned it for 14, 15 years. So they own the right of way. We know where it is. It's just making sure that if, you know, they decided to name it the Andrew Jackson Memorial Connector Road or something in a few months, they won't have to go. They won't have to go change the name in the law. So I think it's just because
actually we should name the East-West Connector that.
Andrew, one other point, I don't know if it makes any difference, but item 2 there, you've got Geneva Road from University Parkway to 1800 South in Utah County. So that's not actually in the county. That's between Orem and Provo.
Yeah, and I think that again, it's physically located in Utah County, but not specifically identifying the community, but just within the county. So you'll see like the next one down, it's in Weber County. Well, it's actually in a local jurisdiction, but it's located in that county. Same with Salt Lake County. Some they'll identify a little more specific, and then others they just identify within the county. So if there's no other questions on that, I just kind of thought maybe we could have like an open discussion if anybody does, if you've heard of any other things that are going on at the legislature that you've got any concerns about, or, you know, I know the league's had some concerns with some of the affordable housing or accessory dwelling units and a few of those regulations, but I don't know if anybody had anything else.
Andrew, you'd mentioned they were making some changes to the Open Public Meeting Act. What, is that a House or a Senate bill that's looking at that?
You know, I'm not sure. I just know that they were doing some changes. I got an email that they were making some changes to that associated with this COVID emergency, you know, and how we have to conduct things now. And in some cases, we can't have an anchor location. So I haven't followed that exactly, except I know that they're making changes.
Okay.
So Andrew, it appears that there's two bills that have been considered in regards to billboard signs. And one I heard was died in committee, but they're trying to bring it back. Seems like this is a moving target. Do you have any updated information?
Only the same that you've put forward, that last I heard it died in committee, but a lot of things can happen that last day or so. I've in years past, I popped some popcorn and waited up until midnight watching what's going on, and you see something that's circled. So when a bill is circled, that's kind of like when you go to the grocery store and you get in line there and you realize that you forgot a loaf of bread. And so you send your kid off to go run real quick and get the loaf of bread that you forgot. And you let the person that's behind you go in front of you, but you still maintain your place in line. And then when your kid comes back with that loaf of bread, then you're the next one that goes to the checkout. That's what it means when a bill is circled, is it's holding its place in line. It's not ready to be voted on yet, but other bills can go in front of it. But as soon as it's all lined up, then it's got the next one in line. And so you see some bills that are circled and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And then it's like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, boom, 15 seconds, it's voted on, it's done deal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of watching those things. And typically they don't like to work on something that hasn't gone through extensive committees. There's value to governments working slow. When they work fast, there's lots of things that are unintentional circumstances or that are thrown at it. So, you know, it's just one of those things, like I said, pop some popcorn and watch it.
I spoke to Senator Winterton today, and it's his impression they're going to take it to interim, but like you said, you never know until midnight next Friday.
Yep.
So
Thursday night.
That billboard bill was Senate Bill 61. And it was a real close vote. It didn't pass, but they said they're trying to get it to come back up. So everybody needs to be watching that, because basically that takes away all the rights of the city. Those billboards can be placed anywhere they want without, in residential, wherever. So we just need to really watch that, make sure that we reach out to our legislators on that one.
I was on a call this morning with some of the league people, and Cam said that someone had told him that 61 and 144 are both not coming back, and it'll be discussed in interim. But like you said, Mayor Leeson, you need to watch those. But that was the latest as of this morning, about 11 o'clock.
You know, part of the problem with the billboards is that if they go from a paper or plastic billboard to an LED, and where the LED sign is changing every 20 seconds, 30 seconds or whatever, and has bright lights on it, and that sign is actually facing into a neighborhood. So all of a sudden these bright lights keep changing white to color, etc. We fought that in Orem, and won on the freeway that was facing close to a neighborhood, but it could be a very irritating problem for a lot of neighborhoods in the county if LED signs are allowed to be put up wherever they want them, and they're changing every 30 seconds from one ad to another.
Does Mayor Mann know he's now the chair of this council? Were you there for that?
I was not. I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. And then I saw Andrew's text and I went, oh, crap.
Okay, yeah, you look so relaxed. I didn't know if you'd heard.
No, I didn't. But thank you for saying. I presumed that would happen, but I thought, well, maybe if they're not there, then they'll pick on somebody else. But
Nope.
I'm happy to do it. So my apologies for being late. That was all on me.
No
I
problem.
filled in it for you for this meeting, but you get the last item on the agenda.
I think we're done with this item then.
Yes, I believe we are.
Okay. And then I think it's just a adjournment. Is that the last thing we have?
And setting a date for the next meeting, which is listed as May 27th.
Mhm. Yep. And I'm assuming that's probably going to be virtual as well.
So a question, I don't know if you covered it. We were going to do an interim dinner evening. Is that just wait until midsummer and see?
I think so.
Okay.
Was Mayor Mann, was that on the Christmas party social we didn't have?
Yes.
Yeah, I was reading that today, and I was going to talk to hopefully sometime this summer we can hold that. And as it said in the thing, I was reading the announcement that we made when we decided in December. Same venue, same entertainment. Hopefully we can do that by the first of the summer. So it'd be great. It'd be great to have all of you come up and enjoy beautiful Wasatch County with a Christmas social, the beginning of the summer.
In July.
We should do it June 25th, half Christmas.
There we go. That'd be great.
All right. So I guess we're looking for a motion to adjourn. If there's nothing else.
This is Mayor Larson, I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.